Good day, everyone, and welcome to The Gray Matter, where we discuss more than just the hot topics and headlines of the day from a Black man's perspective. We appreciate that we are not a monolith, and every subject deserves to be explored with nuance, giving a view from all sides of the culture. So we're here to hopefully bring that to you every week with a little bit of nuance, class, and some fun along the way. Our panel consists of three guys that are absolutely nothing alike, and you'll soon come to find out just how much we love each other in spite of our sometimes very big differences. I'm Billy Craig, and I'll be your moderator for the day, coming to you from a very cloudy and rainy Delaware out here on the East Coast. As always, I'm joined today by my backup vocals, once known as the public announcement, Andre Collins and Paul Wilson. Paul, Andre, how you guys doing today?
We doing good. How'd you get out?
Right. hey, man, that man's still cutting tracks.
Live in the bars. Bars behind bars.
Bars behind bars. Hey, man, you can't. Hey, the real ones, you can't stop them, man. Mm-mm. But welcome anyway. What's going on, Andre? How you doing?
Man, I'm hanging in there, dog. It's hot in Nashville, Tennessee, so I'm staying in the air condition. This is how we playing it today.
Man.
But I'm ready. I got some heat for you today, so I'm ready.
All right, yeah. It's definitely going to be a hot one today, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. First topic of the day, Creflo Dollar made news. For those of you who do not know who Creflo Dollar is, he is a megachurch pastor right outside of Atlanta, Georgia, down in East Point. And he has been popular for decades, frankly. I remember watching him in college and seeing him on BET. It's kind of a big deal because he was one of the first Black ones to really cut into the mainstream. But he made an apology, which made news because he decided that it was time for him to correct the record on tithing. And this, for those who saw it, became a really big stir on the internet. It was a big deal for a lot of people because, you had a lot of people who were, again, taking one side or the other as far as what he had to say. And so my question then is, for all of us, especially those who are familiar with him, in, let's just say in Black America in particular, do we accept Creflo Dollar's apology, and should we, about teaching incorrectly on tithes? And I'll start with Andre.
I'm trying to, I guess, yes, I don't go to his church, so I guess he's not technically offending me. Now, I know we're going to make this a bigger argument based on other pastors and just the overall sentiment about tithing. So, sure, I accept his apology, but only halfway because there's another pastor in Atlanta, Michael Clayton Harris, who brought up the point that he ain't getting none of the money back. He just said, my bad, I was wrong on the teachings. And so this is where, like, an apology without action doesn't really fly very far with me. Like, Benny Hinn, there's been a host of people who have, a host of pastors that did this. Benny Hinn and Joyce Meyer and Todd White also said, my bad, I got this wrong. Now, my issue with this is, you are a minister, a pastor. So I don't know a pastor who hadn't uttered the phrase, the words that is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So what brought about this change, I guess, is what's going on, because I'm confused. If the Bible ain't never changed, how are you just now coming to this revelation post-COVID? Because remember, we talked about this in week 1, where COVID shined a light on the church and made people have to do things differently. Is the extra time reflecting? After I got my plane, I'm cool. Like, I don't need no more tithes. Like, what's the thing that sparked this? Because he never gave a backstory on how he got here. He just said, my bad, I was wrong.
Okay. Paul, what you got?
Well, again, I started with, if he ain't giving the money back, why is he talking? It's like, with the legalization of marijuana, if they ain't gonna let all the people out of jail that went to jail behind it, I don't want to hear about, oh, we have the medicinal and this. Let everybody out, give them first dibs on whatever, and then we can move from there. And this is the kind of the same thing with Creflo Dollar. If you ain't giving the money back, I don't want to hear none of that. Like if somebody slapped you and said, you know what, I shouldn't slap people, and you don't get to hit them back. Like, where do we get that from? Like, what? And this is one of those things where I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. I don't believe in forgiveness. I believe in letting things go, but I don't believe in forgiving. I believe forgiving is giving someone permission to do it to you again, or to do something else to you, bruh. Like, and what else is he gonna do and ask to be forgiven for? You know, he stole money from you for decades and said, "Oh, my bad, I shouldn't have did that." So what's the repercussions behind that? How does he repent? How does he do penance? Does he give money back with interest?
Okay. I mean, lights is getting cut off from, people ain't feeding their kids. They doing all this. And he was saying that the new way to do it, I don't know if it's the new way, but like the whole guilt factor of, you not giving your 10% is causing you to damnation, and it's putting pressure on people. Mm-hmm. That's why a lot of people are leaving the church, because it's like, I don't need that stress in my life to be able to have to deal with you lecturing me that I'm not doing my part for God, even though I'm a good person. And, like Marvin Sapp, he got sued by his former housekeeper because she didn't pay tithes, or according to him, she didn't pay tithes on her $18,000 salary. So he fired her. And like these things, and now you have this split between the church now, because now this is a thing. So, and he is one of the largest voices, based on that. So now we got tithers versus non-tithers, and whether it's right and wrong. And that creates a kind of a hypocritical nature in the church, which starts off the problem of why a lot of people don't go to church, is because you have this, this feeling of one pastor believes one thing, this pastor believes a totally opposite thing. We're not talking about just whether black people can come to church or white people can come to church, like small things. Like the entire foundation, for as long as I can remember, has been built on you got to pay your tithes. So this is a huge thing that now is a disagreement within the church. And as a person who goes to church, I'm looking at you, Rev, on this one. How y'all gonna clean it up, bro?
Okay. Well, before I clean it up, let me start here. A little background in two regards. Number one, so when I lived in Atlanta, I had several neighbors and friends, people who I was pretty close to, who invited me to come out to World Changers. In fact, a couple of people that worked for me when I had my stores down in Atlanta, they actually were members of his church, his congregation there. It's a humongous building out there at East Point. And I visited strictly because I wanted to. I'm one of those kind of people that I'll show up to your mosque. I'll show up to your temple, synagogue, whatever, just to be able to learn, because I find that religion is already polarizing enough. Even within the Christian faith, it's very splintered. And so I find that people who stick to their own and they don't listen and they don't take the time to try to understand, they end up limiting themselves. So my point is, I do have a little bit of familiarity with it. That by no means should be taken to mean that I agree with some of the things that Creflo has taught. I do feel like he's very gifted at teaching, but part two of this is I have always disagreed with that teaching. Part of that comes from believe it or not, I went to Catholic school. And so these are some of the questions that I would ask. And what you find is certain traditions and groups believe in this idea of tithing. It stems from this idea of the old law, this idea that you were to give a tenth of all of your stuff during the times where you tithe. And there are people who believe that that should continue, when there are others who see it right there on the paper where it says that we're no longer under the old law. Now, I don't want to get too far off into the minutia and the scriptures and everything, because that's not really what we're here for. At least I'm not, because I don't find this to be an issue of the teaching and correcting the teaching as much as two things that trouble me about the conversation that came up around it. Number one is that, and I'll go back to last week when we were talking about, well, Paul, when he was talking about Umar, and when he was talking about Jason Whitlock, right? The fact of the matter is he said something very important, and it's a principle I live by. Most people should, even though they don't. Once new information is given, then you have to adjust accordingly. And just like Paul, not that it's apples to apples, but just like Paul was like, listen, I was bumping and I was willing to give Whitlock a break and willing to listen to him, and I was willing to give Umar a chance or whatever. But once you see it for what it is, new information is presented, then you have to take it as such. The reason why I took the time to go into the idea that tithing is not something that is just universally accepted within the Christian faith, because you have different traditions who don't necessarily subscribe to that. I've never been one to subscribe to that, and I'm fortunate that I've always been taught appropriately how tithing was something that was Old Testament. It is not something that we are under. There are plenty of passages like in 2 Corinthians and Romans where it talks about not giving out of compulsion, but you should give out of the kindness of your heart. You should give what you've decided in your heart to give, that kind of thing. But I say that only to say that what I find troubling is that Creflo made a course correction, and we're already cynical about the course correction that he made and already counting this man's money. Now, the reason why I also brought up that about
I thought it was God's money.
Wait a second. Wait, let me finish. This is part two of it. A lot of times people do not understand how these pastors are making their money. So like when you look at a TD Jakes, when you look at a Joel Osteen, when you look at a Joyce Myers, a lot of them, it's very similar to when we have an athlete. And I'll just use, for example, Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, if you actually look at his earnings, and it's obvious, he did not make the bulk of his money. His revenue didn't come from his actual contract with the Chicago Bulls, and certainly not the Washington Wizards. He actually made most of his money outside of the NBA. It was endorsements. It was Wheaties, and it was McDonald's, and it was Nike, and that kind of thing, those endorsements. Very similar what you find, and I found this out when I was living in Atlanta and talking to not just him, but when I did some searching and talking to different people. Andre Landers was someone who I spoke to about this. The New Birth was a really big church. Now it still is a very big congregation down there, and there was some scandal and things like that. But what you find is that most of these pastors are not making money directly from the collection plate. They're making their money from speaking appearances. They're making the money from books they have written. They're making the money from other things that they are a part of. And so what you find is TD Jakes writes a book, becomes a bestseller. He ends up getting the money. And so what they do is they strategically, for tax purposes and otherwise, they make it a point not to bring in their money from the church itself. Or they'll take in, let's say they earn, $500,000, something like that. They end up giving that portion back to the church so that they're not a burden to their congregation. I bring this up because it is a false argument to say, well, why doesn't he give the money back? And the reason why I've held off on saying that, because I'm not here to defend him and his teachings. I feel like that's problematic. I've always felt like it's bad. I've taken the hits in ministry for years because people are like, you're just a hater. You're just mad because you're not some mega church pastor and you're not out there with the same platform. But what you find is actually when it comes to his earnings are solid. That's his money. Now, what he gives is, again, it's on his heart what he's going to give, but he's not fleecing the church like some of these fly-by-night storefront preachers who are out here counting the money and doing shady stuff with it. Their accounting is not the issue. His teachings were the problem. And the fact that he was willing to correct it and even say that, because I took the time to listen to the whole thing because it's near and dear to my heart. He basically said, and I honestly have been sitting on this for a couple of years, and I had to find the courage to be able to admit that I've been wrong for decades in the way I teach, because this is what I was taught. I was taught incorrectly about a lot of, and Andre said it perfectly. Where are you going to go, especially in the Black church, where you don't hear somebody teaching about tithing? It's what everybody passed down, but it was bad information passed down. And personally, again, I don't align myself with Creflo. I just find it to be disingenuous that we're not willing to accept when a person makes the apology and makes the course correction, rather than criticizing him. Because basically what you're just mad because he's rich, not the fact that he'd been teaching it wrong. Because the way he was teaching it had nothing to do with how he was making the money.
I think people are mad because they feel lied to. They feel fleeced. They feel pimped. That's why people are mad, because you telling them to have faith, have faith, have faith. Just give a little bit. Have faith, have faith. God gonna come through, and God ain't done nothing. And these people,
should he?
I'm just telling you, what is the apology gonna do? These people have lost money. People have not paid bills. Like, people have been shut. Utah's a whole different. Utah is built on tithing.
Absolutely, and
Utah,
it's wrong.
Wyoming, Idaho, Arizona, Oregon, all built on tithing.
And
there are people who can't
wrong.
Get jobs if they don't give their check. People lose their jobs.
I have literally ask anybody who's ever known me.
Right.
I've literally never taught that, and I've always taught against. Even when I was younger. My point is, the man owned it. The man has literally said, throw everything that I ever taught on this subject out, because I was teaching what I was given and I was teaching it wrong. And it's almost like that can't be, it's almost like we can't do two things at once. We can't hold him accountable, hold his feet to the fire, and accept the fact that at least he was willing to own it.
So how could you get access to the proper teaching and not him?
It's not a matter of access. It's a matter of people being unwilling to believe things.
So this
just like those people that were giving them money. What's that?
It was not a mistake. It was a choice.
No, absolutely, it was a mistake. I've been taught things wrong from people that I trusted, and I had to go back and do my due diligence.
And you had to do your due diligence.
But now we're back.
That's my point. But that's what I'm saying. Whether he did his due diligence now or he did it 10 years ago, the point is, are we now saying, well, you knew better all this time? Like, you should have corrected this back in the 90s. At what point do we take the man at his word that he owned the fact that he'd been teaching it wrong? What were you saying, Andre?
But now we're back to the origin story of what made you change your mind. Like, you said something about he spent the last couple of years wrestling with this information. And so I still need to know, like, what made you change your mind? Like, just the fact that you saying I got it wrong this entire time doesn't do anything for me. Because like Paul said, there are people that are looking like, okay, so what else have you lied about? This is what it comes down to, is they treat it as a lie, not a mistake. And so if you're sitting here saying you're supposed to be spiritually leading people, we're not talking about the people of his church. We're talking about the people on the outside looking in. Because like I said, we still got people going to churches whose pastors are still teaching tithing. So this isn't an overall universal change.
No,
so,
I get that. And I guess what I'm saying is, we can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Correct.
We can hold his feet to the fire because he deserves it. I'm in that camp.
But again, I'm not even talking about him.
Here's what I'm saying. And Andre, that's my whole point. He's a nice, shiny, flashing object that gets everybody's attention because he has that platform and he has that name recognition. But the fact of the matter is, he's not the only one. And what I'm saying is, you can hold somebody's feet to the fire, but you can also honor their willingness to be humble and own their mistakes and their repentance at the same time.
I don't believe it was a mistake. I believe it was a choice to me. I don't see it as a mistake. I teach my children there are mistakes and there are choices. I know the difference. This was a choice. You said you don't wrestle with taking people's money for 2 or 3 years and continue to do it. Like, that's what I'm saying.
But I just made the point. He's not. That's just it. He wasn't taking directly into his pockets. That's not even. It's like when they talk about there's data and then there's facts. Like there's data and then there's truth. The accounting, unless we're going to sit here and scrutinize whether or not World Changers Ministries or Enterprise or whatever it's called technically, unless we're going to scrutinize their account and say they're doing some funny business, that's public record. That's not. It's not a matter. His salary is not in dispute. What I'm saying is his integrity when it comes to taking. That's why I said it's a difference between storefront preachers who are counting the money and putting it in their pocket and walking off. But we're not talking about accounting errors or people stealing. It's not like he's been embezzling. We're talking about an incorrect teaching. And my point is he hurt a lot of people, but that's not the same as him hurting a lot of people for his benefit. He wasn't taking the money. We're not talking about him taking money.
Hold on. I can't sit here and say he didn't take any money because the tithes were used to pay his salary at some point. The tithes were also used to pay for the building and the other things that he was able to take place in. That $62 million plane, that was used with church funds. That is the part. And here's what I'm saying, because I don't want to get off into all the theological and doctrinal stuff. My point is all of that. The plane. Listen, I can send you to SoundCloud and show you the sermons where I've directly discussed that. That is disgusting. You don't need a private jet to carry you around for $65 million. What I'm saying is, at what point do we acknowledge that he corrected course? Okay,
or
when he sell the plane, then that's where I'll put it at.
Okay, I mean I guess that's fair. Because frankly, I'm not interested in the plane. Because as far as I'm concerned, if you gave $65 million as a collective group because you believe that this was going to further that man's ministry, then at that point, that ain't a matter of what he taught you. That's a matter of you being willfully ignorant and you didn't do the due diligence yourself.
Well, they sell buy your way to heaven.
Right. Even though the Bible clearly says there ain't no way to do it, but you want to believe that. And so what I'm saying is there are more people complicit in this lie than just him. And I personally feel like, again, we can do two things at once. You can both hold his feet to the fire and, like you said, hey, get back the plane or get back the $65 million or, whenever they had them class action lawsuits and they'd be like, were you hurt? Did you use Johnson & Johnson powder?
You might be entitled to financial compensation.
You might be entitled to financial compensation. Like you are still, and that's going back, I mean, not to be funny, but like that goes back to the Mosaic law. Like restitution is in order. Reparations are in order. I'm only saying that we have to be willing to do two things at once. Because let's face it, there's a lot of people out there without the name Creflo Dollar who are still holding on to this lie, and still they're literally calling him like he's some kind of heretic or like he's a false teacher because he's now correcting the record.
You're messing up the game.
Literally, that's all it is. And even if you feel like you said, Paul, I'm not gonna argue with you like, hey, he knew better and this was all a racket. And now it's just like, it ain't worth it to him anymore. I don't know, because I don't know him personally. What I'm saying is the conversation, we have to be consistent. And consistency is don't just sit up here and act like when a man actually owns his mistake, that now we're going to beat him down even more. It's like, no, hold his feet to the fire. Restitution's in order. You may be entitled to compensation. Call Collins and Wilson attorneys at law. Will get you your money or something. But I find that we convolute the arguments because at the same time, people getting ready to show up on Sunday for church and they still are caught up under this tithing false ideology, false theology. And it's a hard thing to break. But if anything, Black people need to understand is mind control is a hard thing to break. People have been brought up under this system for decades, believing something that wasn't true. It was a distortion. So that's all I got on it. I had to get that off. I was
Mm-hmm.
it was hurting me. It was paining me.
Mm-hmm.
All minds are clear.
If all minds are clear,
I'm good.
the doors of the church are open.
If you good, I'm good.
Well, moving right along, the second thing we're going to talk about is a little thing we know all too well. Yet another thing that we lived under our whole lives. The topic of what is also known as code switching, changing up in less sophisticated circles. They call it talking white, maybe.
Sell it out. Coolness.
We back.
We back.
Back to that.
Back to
that. All right. So when we talk about code switching, the way I want to present this is with a very simple question. In light of how our society has changed and the standards of how we communicate, how we dress, how we approach one another, even in the workplace, because that's where a lot of this would show up, is in circles where there was a certain professionalism expected of you. People don't hold those same norms and mores and things like that. So the question is, do we still need code switching? Is that an art that we still need to teach our children and participate in? Or is it okay to just talk the way you want to talk and be the way you want to be? Paul, you first.
Well, yeah, it's definitely necessary. It's no different than being bilingual, trilingual, or however multilingual. You got to learn the language of the land that you walk in, right? So I couldn't talk on North Bend Road in the hallways the way I talk with the homeboys at the park, right? I don't talk to my children how I talk to you. When we have conversations, we have different conversations.
Hope not.
Right. So it's most definitely necessary. And if you aren't actually participating, it's also, I see it as a lack of respect. It's not submission, it is respect. And some people confuse respect and submission. Paying attention to someone's customs. Even though I don't go to church, I bow my head when I went at a meal with someone who's religious, because that's what you do, right? So that's code switching. Putting on a suit when you go to court is code switching. Because if you don't put on a suit, go to court in a FUBU with drug charges. See what happened without a lawyer.
See how that work out.
See how that work out for you. You know what I'm saying? Right. Presentation is a lot of how people receive you, how people will choose to entertain you going forward. You never get a chance to make a first impression, right? Like you see, Dre and I, we got these chains on. We would never wear these chains walking down Blair Avenue in the 80s. And if you know, you know.
Please don't.
Just don't do it, right? I went to St. X, private all boys school. You think I could have worn my hair like this? At all. I had a coach in college, didn't want facial hair. So we had to shave. So I had the bumpy face under my chin strap.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Hair bumps, all kind of crazy stuff, because this is how I had to do in order to participate with this group, right? Groups have their own rules. The
military has the same standard. Police.
Right.
Up until recently, what was it? I know, like the Reds, the Yankees, you had to have no facial hair.
Right.
Like maybe a tight mustache. My dad, when he worked for IBM, he took his job. He started there in 1968. Mm-hmm. They were like, you literally had to, you had to wear the wingtip shoes and suit and the tie with the white collared shirt, maybe a little yellow on Friday kind of thing. But you had this code.
Y'all remember Millicron?
Yeah.
It was
Yes.
it was what, all navy blue
Yes.
or gray slacks with the navy blue with the white, right?
Yep. Catholic school. What did we do in Catholic school? We had khakis.
Mm-hmm.
Them khakis and slacks and them polo
Right.
shirts. And then Friday we like, you can wear some gym shoes. And I was like, bet.
No, y'all had to wear stuff at Bacon. We didn't. We had a dress code. We didn't have uniforms.
Yeah, well, no, that's what I'm saying. The girls had uniform. We didn't have uniforms at Bacon.
Okay.
I'm saying that it was, for me, it was, I didn't have to change anything from St. X to Roger Bacon. The only thing was on Fridays, you could wear some gym shoes. Because other than that, it was them Eastlands that I didn't even discover Eastlands like that until freshman year, where it was like, yeah, you're going to do it.
I used to wear sneakers to X. But you just had to wear. It's like it's just how everybody dresses now. Everybody will wear like slacks with a collared shirt, but they got they ones or they J's or whatever on. How people wear sneakers.
Solid color, like it almost like wearing Skechers or something. Yeah.
Right.
Like it could be like stand out.
Right.
So Andre, where do you come down on code switching? You're a professional code switcher. I know
a professional. I am a professional code switcher. So I think part of the problem that we get caught up in is not us, but like as a whole within this code switching argument is we operate on things. We want to operate on how things should be versus how things actually are. Mm-hmm. And so I remember one of my friends having this argument that, she doesn't teach her kids. She actually is against her kids saying, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and things like that. And like what we take is like we would take as commonplace courtesy. And she was like, that you don't call them sir or ma'am. They don't own you or anything like that. And it's like that sometimes it's being militant for no damn reason whatsoever. Like, so backstory, like, I'm in corporate America. Like I just am. That's part of the game that I chose. Now at the same time was also and still am, a songwriter, producer, artist, and all of that. So I have to bounce between both worlds. But what I learned early on was that in order for me to make progress and be a star, quote unquote star, I needed to be able to talk the language of the people that I wanted to be in the rooms with. Mm-hmm. And the fact that, some people are against or opposed just because they want to, quote unquote, keep it real. They are cutting off so much access to everything just in sake of, not losing whatever points they were supposed to get from the hood that don't give a damn about them anyway. But I'm in like it. I've code switched for so long that it's just a matter of who I am now at this point. I'm able to adapt to any room that I'm in because I've done it for my entire life. When you go to Moeller, again, all three of us share a commonality. We went to Catholic schools. Now Moeller's one of the prestigious all-white Catholic schools, but Montgomery Road, you have to drive through there. One of my homeboys lived in Silverton, so the amount of times I got pulled over on Montgomery Road going into Silverton is outside of is typical for Black people in Cincinnati, but just in reality, it's outside the norm. But without being able to, change my voice, turn the radio down, because back then I was listening to Pac heavy. Me and Tupacalypse Now was on, but I can't play Soldier Story at the time the cop walks up to the car. So no, we're gonna put on we're gonna hit that button real quick, put on some Led Zeppelin, and we're gonna say yes, sir, and try to get out, because my whole goal is just to make it out this thing alive. I've been practicing that since I was 14. So now, like I said, this is now just a part of who I am, but also being able to do this has opened up doors and got me into rooms that I had no business even being in. But because I was being able to carry myself in a certain way, it opened up doors and avenues. Now y'all got options and y'all can do what y'all want to, but a lot of people are preaching or bitter about oppression, like they hold me down. They don't want to give me a chance because they think I'm just, too Black, or I'm too this, or I'm too that. And it's like, I don't necessarily know if it's that versus the representation. You are a brand. This is the same thing that I've always been taught, and I also teach. You are a brand. If you're bad for the brand, they're not going to put you out front. You're not going to be elevated to a position or at least you're going to have a ceiling that's a lot lower than other people's no matter how smart you are. So yes, all that to say, yes, I'm in favor of code switching. I think it's still necessary because the rest of the world, even though we done caught up in some little small towns, the rest of the world ain't caught up to that yet. Kendrick Perkins is an anomaly on television. Charles Barkley is an anomaly on television. Yeah. Those ain't the rules. And Charles is about to retire, so we gonna be left with Kendrick Perkins. That's about it. Everybody else,
Draymond.
But Draymond knows how to speak. Like,
I was about to say, Draymond is one of the best code switchers in professional sports.
Well, you also got to speak for yourself, boys. Wiley and Acho are amazing. Are amazing.
Yes. And what I find it's funny that you bring them up, because what I find fascinating about them is that regardless of what you think of them, their codes, the way that they seamlessly code switch in and out is legendary. Mm-hmm. Like, even if you don't agree with them or you feel like I don't like them, the way that they literally go, in fact, for a white person or somebody who's not familiar with what Black people speak of when they say code switching, I would literally just tell them, watch an episode or speak for yourself.
Because it ain't just about talking white, because we have to code switch amongst each other.
Absolutely.
Too.
Yes.
Right?
There's some who don't do it well.
Well, you have your African Americans, you have your Negroes, you have your Black folks, and you have what we call the N-words with the soft A.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So
and I know each and every one of those categories when I hear them. When I see them, I know which one I'm talking to.
Right. So you can't talk to those 4 different boxes of folks with the same language. Talk to an African American the way you talk to a soft A. That African American will never speak to you again, or he'll try to correct you, or she'll try to correct you, like, brother, we don't talk like that, right?
And you say, old lady, like, baby, come here,
baby, come here.
Let me help you out. You know, one of the things I think of, and I'm going to borrow this from my man, Mr. Eclectic Soul. Mm-hmm. What's his catchphrase? Read the room. Mm-hmm. And what I find fascinating about even the conversation and all the dynamics around code switching is that too often it is treated, much like you were alluding to earlier, Paul, it's treated as though if I code switch and I am somehow selling out, right? We're back to that, where it's like you're treated as though you somehow lessened yourself, or you took something or stripped yourself of something, your dignity, your honor or something, by being willing to address someone as yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, by being willing to conform to a certain set of rules, like you said, shaving, something we all had to do, or dressing a certain way. These are types of things that, because we tie it to some, I don't know, some false agreements, you might say, we tie it to the wrong things. But I think of this book, there's a guy he's a linguist, his name is John McWhorter, right? And he has a book that I read a while ago. It's called 9 Nasty Words. Came out with it a few years ago. I read it during COVID, but came out with another one recently. It was called Talking Back and Talking Black. And basically he broke down how some of the ways in which we will tell a person that's talking Black, actually, when it comes to linguistics, we've kind of pigeonholed ourselves and put ourselves in this box where we'll tell somebody that they're talking Black when really what we're thinking in our head is they're talking incorrectly. They're talking, and we'll call it bad English. Well, the fact of the matter is, there are all different types of dialects. There are all different types of ways that you get down when you talk in different places. I could think I'm speaking perfect English. I land over in the UK somewhere, and they'll be like, he sound kind of backwoods and country or whatever, because that's how they view my dialect. Same thing if I talk to somebody who's, let's say, from New Orleans, somewhere on the Delta, Mississippi, something like that. There's a totally different way in which they speak. Even the way that they use certain terms that we would just think of as normal stuff like mom and dad, right? But I bring all this up only to say that too often we associate code switching with whether or not you're a real one, whether or not you down, whether or not you a ride or die. All of these things, we associate this honor or this bravado or this litmus test of you being consistent without understanding that, like you said, when I go to court, no, wearing a suit is not something that you would look down at somebody about, because you understand that you're addressing a judge, you're addressing a jury, you're trying to represent yourself in the best light possible, even if you're not the defendant. Like, you show up appropriately, and I find that the code switching conversation gets convoluted because of our own insecurities, our own imposter syndrome, because a lot of times we don't feel like we belong in the room anyway. And so then we feel like, well, we got to measure up. And so it's like we got to take away this litmus test that comes with code switching. And instead, we need to, frankly, I respect people who, like you said, are bilingual and trilingual, multilingual and able to adapt. I mean, if I'm over in China somewhere, I'm taking my shoes off. I'm going to have my feet clean because I know my shoes are coming off, because that's what they do. And unless you want to be immediately dismissed from whatever conversation or whatever situation it is, you do it. And there's no shame associated with your ability to read the room and know what time it is.
So I was sitting here thinking, when we keep talking about court and everybody, or not everybody, but people talk about code switching until they need a lawyer to talk in the proper English to the judge.
Man,
like you get you a lawyer and he approached the judge and be like, "Hey, look here, little boy, you gonna sit here and think you going to jail?" Like, I'm going to jail.
I get going to jail. I'll be like, Your Honor, I need new counsel.
I'll represent myself. I'm good.
Yeah, like my cousin Benny. Remember your boy got up there and started stuttering? He was like, whoa, wait a minute. Now all of a sudden, Vinny ain't looking so bad.
Right. Well, when I lived in Utah, when my oldest son that used to live with me would go spend the night at his friend's house who were LDS, I had to put some pants and a collared shirt in if it was over a Saturday night, because he was going to church.
Yeah, they
going to church. It is what it is. I ain't going, but I'm not going to allow him to miss the experience of having fun with some friends and bonding and whatnot with kids in the neighborhood. You just got to go to church with that, bro.
Well, here's the fact of the matter. I've never been Catholic a day in my life. But I mean, the education was there, the resources was there, football, track. Like, I literally was not going to allow, my parents, I should say, weren't going to allow me to miss out on the experience and the benefits of that education and of that experience and the exposure that came with it. Like, literally, that's why I was saying, I've come up in code switching my whole life. It's just like locker rooms. There's a code in a locker room.
Yep.
And you have to learn, read the room, learn to adapt when you go from one team to another. It doesn't have the same energy. It doesn't have the same vibe. And so you have to learn that, because that's a part of getting along and working with a team and being able to thrive. The point is, it should be a compliment. It should be something that we praise and honor, not something that we should even question. Like, I almost feel like if I don't teach my son, because one of the things about him, I've actually had to teach him the other code, because he didn't grow up around any urban areas, any people who were native to me. Like, even my cousins, and, because, I didn't grow up in no rough part of town or nothing like that. But I had relatives, I had experiences, I had people who I was close to, where it was like, at a very young age, I understood, okay, so when we hear, we do this.
Right.
I remember, what was I, like 9 years old? Lincoln Heights Tigers, okay?
Right.
That was a different brand of football.
Right.
Okay?
It was a different brand.
Because because it was
entirely different brand.
That was entirely different, right? Because, I'm from Forest Park, and, you get into Lincoln Heights and Woodlawn, and you find out there's a different code. And that's only like 4 miles down the road. We ain't talking about another part of the country.
4 miles?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Literally, it's
a whole 4 miles? Okay.
It's almost walking distance if you have to do it.
If you have to do it, that's what I was saying.
Right. That's that's the thing. You just you just got to know the safe way to get out. But my point is,
you could.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's certain streets. It's like, no, don't go. No, make sure you go left, not right.
Right. Right.
But the point is, even within teams, there's certain corporations that are big enough where you work in one area, where you get moved to another one. It's a little different. Like Andre, he's working in the same field, same place, but since he has switched companies, you got to read the room. You got to understand all bosses, all co-workers, all teams and units are not put together the same. Your responsibilities may change, but that also requires you to, take on a different form. So I think it's something that, unfortunately, not enough people strip the shame away from it, because it needs to be taught. I think more, I should say, intentionally and deliberately, especially young kids coming up who, they don't know. We're doing them a disservice if we don't teach it to them.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
That's my take.
Yeah, but to add on to what you're saying, my kids are not growing up how I grew up. It's the opposite.
Oh.
Now I got to teach them how to be around their people, because yeah, real talk, because they grew up in Utah.
Yeah. And them not they people
at all. We didn't have no family out there, so it was just us. So we got to give them a crash course of how to be around their people. Yeah. Again, my youngest boys operate out of success. My oldest, because I was a little younger and times was different when I had him, he's kind of in the middle, because I was on that acting out of survival thing. So in a weird way, I've had to teach him how to act and them how to act, right? Like, it was weird. It's a whole weird dynamic, bro, as far as like being upwardly mobile and having Black boys and living in white spaces like the Rocky Mountain region and in the Pacific Northwest. It's a different fight for your Black boys. It's why my hair looks like y'all. If you know me, you know me. I keep crispy corners and a fade. That's how I was for the longest. But once I got out here and it wasn't nobody else, I had to let myself look like how I look naturally, so my boys could understand that how you are and who you are is okay.
It's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah. So, of course, so whenever I go to the baseball field, what do? They know, oh, you Peyton's dad. Because ain't nobody but me with hair out there. You know what I mean? So, and
what you say is perfect there, because, and even the word that you use, spaces, because it's something that's recently been used more often, and I appreciate that, where we just have to call a spade and call it what it is. There are certain spaces. These are white spaces. These are Black spaces. These are women spaces. These are spaces where you have to know the language and, frankly, know when to shut up. But actually, that kind of segues into the next topic that I wanted to get into. When we talk about politics, and generally speaking, even though we, lie to ourselves and say there's independents out there and people who don't subscribe to a particular party or whatever, I mean, that's like legit maybe 5% of the country. Most people have, even if they don't identify with a party, they have a certain leaning. They're left-leaning mostly or right-leaning mostly, that kind of thing. And yes, obviously there are the gray matters. There's a nuance in between. But the question I have is, after a whole term of Donald Trump and all these hearings and all the criticisms that have come with the corruption and all the flagrant disregard for the norms and the pomp and circumstance that comes with the presidency, when we think about the left, or let me just say for myself, when I think about the left, when I think about Democrats, when I think about people who lean left in many of their positions, I find that people are able generally, mostly, to agree that they are squandering an opportunity. Now, again, I'm not talking about this isn't like a campaign speech where I'm talking about whether you should vote left or right, but I'm saying anybody with eyes and intelligence can see you have squandered an opportunity. And so the question I want to throw out here is, do people on the left realize that they have already lost America? That it's already over? Do they realize it doesn't matter what happens in the midterms? It doesn't matter what happens in 2024. Like, you have lost because you squandered an opportunity. And then I guess that'll be part A. And then part B would be, why did they lose it so badly? Anybody want that one?
Go ahead, Dre.
People pleasing.
Go on, get it, man.
Yeah. People pleasing is how they ended up. It's one of those things like where, okay, to give a sports analogy, real quick. So you have two teams that we'll say, because this actually literally happened in Louisville. So St. X and Trinity. They kept winning all the state championships. They would always meet in the state championships. So we changed the rules so that they had to meet before the state championship to give somebody else a try. They kept adjusting the rules so that people didn't have to get better. They just had to move the rules so that somebody else could participate. And I think that's one of the things that we've done in America is we keep changing rules to the point that where we have
nobody knows how to play the game anymore.
Right. We try to please too many people. Like it's the line from The Incredibles, the cartoon. If everybody's special, then nobody is. Like that's we've made it to the point that we've tried to make everybody special. We got to look out for the trans community. We got to look out for separate LGBT, like just strictly gay people. Then we got to look out for Black people, the Asians. They got to have a space. We've completely kicked the American Indians out or the Native Americans out. But we're trying to bring them back into the fold. And then we got to still take care of Asia and all these different things. Wow. And the left, the far left, is to the point where we like it's a protest about everything every day. And people, even I'm exhausted by it. Like it started off as just like, it started off as Black Lives Matter. And I was like, cool, yes, Black lives do matter. And I'm glad that y'all saying it. Then it went to, well, trans people have the same fight that Black people do. Wait, hold up. And then these people had the same, and it's like, and we kept adding on to Black people's pain, like by trying to equate everybody's pain to Black people's struggle. And now the message is so muddled that it's like one thing that Donald Trump did, which was brilliant. I'm not even going to like knock him as far as his brilliance, as far as a marketer and things like that, and how he could flip a script. The two things he did, he turned Colin Kaepernick's protest into the national anthem debate. That was the first thing he did that was brilliant because neither one of them had anything to do with each other. But the second thing that he did was he weaponized like the left. Like before it was like, are you conservative or are you a left-wing nut? Like that. But like it didn't used to be that when we were growing up. It was just, are you conservative? Are you a little bit liberal?
There were far more things in the middle that everybody universally agreed on.
Right. But now the liberal means you got to be over here. You got to love, Black people mobility. You got to love trans people. You got to love LGBT. If you don't like any of those categories, like it can be one that you just are like, I don't agree with abortion. Oh, well, then you got to be a conservative. Like that's the only category you get. Like we've knocked it down to the point where it's either this or that. And this is really the point of the show is, no, there's a gray matter. Like there is a gray factor and it actually does count. But we've kind of eliminated that. And that's where the left lost it is we allowed them to make it a two thought process system.
I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. I'm going to let Paul finish this one off.
All right.
But the thing I think about is the first thing that comes to mind is that, number one, and this is not left or right or anything in between, I heard someone talking about this as it relates to the recent news of Boris Johnson resigning. Mm-hmm. And someone was talking about how the problem with the UK and everybody around the world kind of universally laughs at it, is how disposable their leaders are because of the way that their system is. It's kind of like you mess up once, they'll be like, the Gong Show, and they'll just replace you. And then it's literally like you could be in there and you could say something wrong. You could take one wrong position and it's just like, bye. Now, I'm not defending or saying that he was, right. I mean, he was acting a fool. But my point is that their system of government is antiquated. It was set up for a time that has long since passed by. When we think about sports, to use an analogy, it's like football. You ever see those old clips, those like black and white, where they'll show like, what is it, like Otto Graham or somebody, or even back before that? What was the guy's name? The Native American guy, the
Thorpe.
Thorpe. Okay.
Thorpe, yeah.
All right. So Jim Thorpe, right? They had like, they called them helmets. Them was basically padded skull caps, right?
Yeah.
They ran around full speed tackling each other with padded skull caps, right? Well, if we did that today, all three of us would be dead. Like literally, we wouldn't have survived. Like it would just be, we would all have, well, even if we did survive, we wouldn't look as beautiful as we look right now because the helmets kept our skin on our face. Like they adjusted with the times. I'm reminded of that clip.
They also wasn't running down what they hit. They wasn't doing like we was doing.
And that's my point.
No.
I was literally getting ready to go there because in fact, I saw this, somebody reminded me of this earlier this week. They showed a clip. Remember in the Pro Bowl when Sean Taylor, like, he Pete
Rose that dude.
Decapitated him. I forget who it was now. It'll come to me later. But
Wasn't it Gus Fromm or something like that?
Just like we forget who Pete Rose did it to.
The dude from Durant, right. Okay.
I think it was Gus Fromm, but keep going.
Okay. Whoever it was, what I'm saying is they adjusted with the times. They got different helmets. They got different technology. They changed the way the pads were. Because things change. Same thing with baseball. That you see some old black and white clip. They didn't even have batting helmets. I'm not going anywhere on the field with Randy Johnson without a batting helmet. Okay, I'm not taking that, right? And when I'm getting back to politics, though, there has to be an adjustment in the way that politics get done. Everybody keeps talking about Congress and gridlock and not being able to agree on anything, so nothing gets done. Well, that's because you're working on a system. We're going to be like the UK in the next 200 years if we don't fix it. Now, I say all this simply to say this, getting back to how the left has lost America. It's something that has become popular now. They talk about purity test, right? These tests are basically, the purity test, basically, you're not really one of us if you don't agree on all of these things. It's almost like we have that litmus test. I'm thinking of Peter Griffin where they put the card up and they're like, you're okay, otherwise you get arrested, right? Now, here's the point. That's just a little thing I enjoy. I think it's funny. It's sick, but it's funny to me. But recently, there was an interview that Macy Gray did where Macy Gray basically said that, and I'm paraphrasing here, I may be butchering a little bit, but the general sentiment was, look, I don't care what people do in their privacy of their own homes and their bedrooms and things like that, but just because you decided to change your physical bodily organs and just because you have a feeling about something does not mean that you are a woman. You don't get, it's like what in Dr. Phil, that one guy said on Dr. Phil one time, you don't get your own pronouns. You don't get to choose your pronouns, right? And what happened was she said basically that there's more to being a woman than just your, genetics. I mean, sorry, not your genetics, your
genitalia.
Genitalia, thank you. I was stuck in the G's. I didn't get that one out. Your genitalia does not, just because you change your genitalia does not mean that you are somehow a man or a woman just because you want to. The fact is, she was saying childbirth, growing up as a little girl, the struggle of having to deal with cramps and your menstrual cycle and childbirth, losing a child, miscarrying, all of these types of things go into the experience of being a woman. And you don't just get to come. And the point was, everybody from the left side of the media just pounced on her. And my thing was this: even if you disagree with her, and that's fine if you want to disagree with her opinion, why does she get canceled or somehow she doesn't pass the test as being considered one of us just because we don't agree with that? Bette Midler says something very similar, and people lost their minds. And that's part of the conversation, I think, when it comes to the left, because there's literally this like intolerance for anything. It's almost like saying, and I'll use this as an example, Andre can appreciate this, but it's like Andre was faster than I was in the 100. That does not mean that I was not fast, right? That doesn't mean that I couldn't go. That just means that I was, a step or two or 0.2 or whatever it is behind. I don't know. I don't even know what the time was. But my point was, no, there was a reason why I'm sitting there anxiously waiting, because I was the anchor on my team, because I was the fastest dude in my school. Now, if I went to Moeller, then I'd probably be running first. That's how it would have worked, because your anchor is your fastest leg. But my point is, just because somebody isn't hardcore one or the other, and we saw this with Trump, where everybody, went through this whole litmus test. It's like, you're a rhino, you're a Republican in name only. You're not truly conservative if you're not down with Trump. But then the left won't hold the mirror up and realize you're killing yourself, and you're killing your message, and you're killing the opportunity, because you are doing the exact same thing that you criticized Donald Trump for. What say you, Paul?
I say they lost when they elected Obama and refused to let him govern. And the only thing they allowed him to do was change the gay marriage law. They did not allow him to do anything for anyone brown. Not a thing, right? So what happens then is now we get centered on the LGBTQ plus movement. And that's been, let's be honest, that's been the what's lost everyone. It's not necessarily that folks don't believe that LGBTQ plus folks don't deserve space, safe spaces, and the right to exist and the right to access to all the things that everyone else deserves.
Property,
access.
Whatever
Property,
you want to do, legally, marriage, all that kind of stuff. Like, however you define it, let them people live. Let them mind it. Right. That's none of my business. Let them have it.
But they went further and said you have to like how they live. You have to approve. Otherwise, you're a racist. You're a bigot. Now, how somebody lives is not up for my approval. It's not my decision. I believe everybody deserves the right to live right, as long as you ain't hurting nobody and you ain't taking from nobody, right? And that includes women, children, and old folks. Leave them folks alone. That's what I believe. Everyone should be able to live and move how they want to move. The problem is, on the left side of the game, if you don't believe everything they believe, you're a bigot.
Yeah. And more importantly, it's okay for somebody to call you a bigot.
Right.
It's okay to just let you label somebody. Like, wait a minute. How did we get from, I don't see it the way you see it, maybe you can persuade me, maybe you can convince me otherwise and change my mind, to, nah, man, you're just a bigot. But you're not even my ally.
Even if you can't change my mind, like, I'm not going to change my mind about trans women in sports.
Ooh, geez.
Like, I'm not going to change my mind.
Never.
Biologically, there is an advantage to you being born as a male.
It's also known as testosterone.
We men welcome any woman who wants to try to compete with us in our arenas. However, we do not believe men should be going down and competing against women. That is just wrong.
That, to me, and there's nothing wrong with me stating that. Like, Florence Griffith Joyner, one of the coldest to ever do it, ran a 10.49. Do you realize she wouldn't even win a high school state championship with a 10.49? Like, you can't tell me there's not an advantage. So
she wouldn't win in Delaware. Forget Texas, Florida, Ohio.
She wouldn't win in Utah.
Right.
So he wouldn't win high school boys state in Utah. And we know Utah ain't Georgia. It ain't Texas, and it ain't Florida.
Right. It ain't Ohio.
But we sitting here at the point where we're saying, okay, everybody has to be included. Everybody needs a trophy. Everybody needs this. Now, wait till 15 years from now when a man becomes a woman who enters the UFC ring and kills somebody. And then we're going to sit here and try to act like we all up in arms because this happened. But
It's
this is the
Somebody
path
almost
to
did.
this is the path
A man actually already did and broke the lady's face.
Yes, but
He's talking about a life.
Right, we just now
At that point, it was like, hey, you got in there with him. You knew it was a dude before he was a woman. So, hey,
but right now, we're still at the beginning of this. So we talking, Dwayne Wade's daughter, like when she gets old enough to compete and she dropping 35 a game
in the WNBA.
Like now we've muddied this because we wanted to make sure. Now, my only I don't have all the answers. My only solutions is trans people play against other trans people. That's as easy as I can make it. Other than that, that's all I got. Like, I don't have any other solutions other than that because it stop it. Like, that's really all I got. I mean, I love everybody. I promise you I do. But there's certain things that just like, I don't want my daughter competing against somebody who was born biologically a male in a combat sport. Like, that's just, to me, that's wrong. And
more than anything, and I guess this is where, again, getting back to how the left lost it, because that's essentially what Andre is saying. I look at it and I'm thinking to myself, you lost it because you don't get to tell me that on something that is not settled science, it's not settled law, it is not settled thought. We're not talking about Paul's going to argue with the rest of the nearly 7 billion people on the planet about the sky. The sky is actually orange. Nah, bruh, we're going to call it blue because that's the way it hits my eyes. Right.
I love women's sports. So that's why I'm adamant about this, is because my wife and I, we actually watch the WNBA.
Right.
We watch track. We watch women's soccer.
Yeah.
We watch even when the World Series is the Little League World Series, we're gonna watch the girls get down too.
Right.
Like, I love, and
you are one of the few people I know who it don't matter what's on. If the girls are out there doing, you'll be like, bet. We're watching that.
Yeah. It's wild, man. Like how do we get to this point? And I go back to Black Lives Matter, which was actually a Trojan horse. It was not about Black lives. It was about the LGBTQ community. Go on their website and read their mission statement. It was not about Black folks.
And when Andre mentioned that earlier, talking about everybody kind of hijacking the message and taking off for Black people, here's the thing. People who are astute and who've read about it, they will understand that is part of what we find in our recent history. We're talking about going back to the civil rights movement. A lot of the criticism and a lot of the reason why some people have gone over to the conservative side of things is because they find that they've been let down, because what was supposed to be an issue to make sure that literally hundreds of years of like disenfranchisement to Black and brown people were somehow hijacked, and it became women's liberation. It became LGBTQ rights. It became all of these other things. And that's not to say that those things don't matter, but we still haven't even gotten that fixed.
Before y'all try to cancel us, we are not saying that LGBTQ plus people do not deserve rights. I just want to go on the record and say that we're not.
You can try to cancel me if you want to, but no, that's not at all what I'm saying.
What I'm saying is that the left became, instead of a movement of the people, it became the LGBTQ plus focused community. That is what the movement became. And what happened is, when it became about one group instead of every group, everybody's like, oh, so this is, and then we start using words like they have an agenda. They're trying to feminize the men and all this other stuff that these images they're putting in front. So it gives conspiracy theorists ammo and fodder to keep speaking. And again, when your actions keep going the way they're going, it's like, oh, so you're not about us. You're about this group. So this is the party of the LGBTQ plus community. Now, at first, I thought it was a party for all Americans to be progressive. But apparently it's more about tolerance around sexuality and gender than it is about inclusivity.
Yeah, but because it should be a broader, it's not a matter of you can't get in if you don't. It should be more of a, as long as you're willing to. It's kind of like how they tell you if you join a group or something, like as long as you're willing to follow these guidelines, it's cool. Problem is your guidelines are now, again, this litmus test of, do you believe that, transgender boys or something should be able to do that? And it's like, no. I mean, I agree with the rest of it, and it's like, nope. There is no tolerance.
Yeah,
there is no tolerance.
The
on either side.
Claims, right, the party that claims tolerance is the least tolerant party.
Tolerant, exact, and I'm frankly, that is what, and that's kind of where I guess we can almost button it up. It's like your lack of tolerance is showing. It is glaringly obvious at this point because you're so sensitive to differences. What made you think that a female, a lesbian white woman, and a, let's say, Christian Southern black man were going to agree on everything when it comes to politics and government? It's not possible to expect that. So there is going to have to be some tolerance somewhere.
Right.
And I'll just leave it here. This may be controversial, but what I find, going back to the civil rights thing, is that, frankly, it has often been because Black people have wanted so much, and this is just me speaking, okay? I find that because we want acceptance so bad as Black people, that we, frankly, have been too willing to let other people hijack the message, which is why oftentimes we don't get what we want. And I know I took a total left turn there.
No,
but
you
that's just where I'm at.
We Black folks as a collective go out of their way and beg for white acceptance.
To be liked.
That is the motto of our existence in America. Yeah. We love when a white boy love our songs, or we love when a white girl can dance.
We don't even count it unless you go into what they call the mainstream. But we know mainstream is white acceptance. And I find that in more than just music or something artistry, there tends to be this element where we want acceptance so bad that we're not willing to just stand on principle and be like, look, whether you like me or not, maybe I'm just going to have to grind it out. Maybe I'm not going to get the same traction that my peers and counterparts might, but I'm just going to stand on this whether you like it or not, and be okay with that. But anyway, that's just my little 2 cents in there.
I get it. And that's still not, so before somebody even points it out, we talking the difference between acceptance and code switching. Code switching is a totally different thing than what we talking about. So before y'all try to point out, oh, y'all being hypocritical, shut up, stop it.
Point it out. Point it out. Get mad. I'm with all the smoke, man. I'm with all that dumb.
Hey, I read the comment. I've been waiting for it. When you say pull up.
Pull up.
Please.
Hey, we ain't said nothing bad about nobody's mama, their kids. We ain't said nothing crazy about nobody. And you can disagree with us. We talking out in public, so you can disagree with us. It's conversation.
Because the conversation needs to be had in the middle somewhere, like not on the extremes. I'm not out here to be quote unquote liked. I mean, don't get me wrong. Please subscribe. We need subscribers. I don't want to hurt nobody. We love you, but not at the expense of my soul. Not what I'm saying.
We know the world ain't going to agree with us. We don't agree with each other.
No,
absolutely.
Not really. As always, we got to talk about those that are missing in action, those who have come up invisible, those who have come up short in the fourth quarter, those where we most needed their presence are nowhere to be found. So we have to talk about our APBs, the all points bulletin for all of those who are showing up like Casper, right? You invisible, dog. And so as is our custom now, we start our APBs with A. So Andre, what you got?
My APB, I've been pretty hard on cultures lately, so I'm gonna change it up. I'm gonna change it up. Still gonna be hard, but it's different. So my APB is for dating, like the actual art of dating. Like, this is like, I don't know what has happened to the dating scene in this country, but it is
the internet.
The internet's in listen to Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion tell you what you're supposed to get, and all like back in the day, we used to have to talk to people, had to, hey, how you doing? What's your name? Stuff like that. Can I get your number? Like, I was in the mall the other day and this guy walked up to this girl. Now, these grown people, these ain't kids. They were grown people. He asked her for her IG handle. That was his introduction. Yo, you look good. Can I get your IG? What? Come on now, dog. Like, what happened to the actual art of dating? Like, and actually going out, like, hey, let's go get some coffee. Let's go get, let's talk for a little bit. Like, people don't even have conversations anymore, and it is beyond. I wish one of these little Thundercats would come up to my daughter and ask for her IG handle. Like, I'm gonna need you to be able to hold a conversation. Now we wonder why people can't communicate. It's because they don't actually do it. People don't talk on the phone anymore. I know it gets annoying sometimes, but dog, like, have conversations. Pick up the phone and call and just check and see how somebody's doing. Don't send them a message. Don't send them a text message, because when it comes to conflict resolution way down the line, you're gonna be what you're gonna do. You're gonna sit in your therapy session and text. This is how she made me feel, and I'm not agreeing with it. Like, I need y'all to be able to communicate and just go on an actual date. All three of us are married.
Wow.
I don't know about y'all. I know I've seen Paul take his wife out and they go out and just go to B-dubs and have some wings and have a good time. Me and my wife, we go to movies. We got a date tonight. So I'm like, and I'm assuming Billy does the same because he just in love like that. But can we get back to that in real life? Is just the actual dating scene. Like, I equate this. One of my friends said her dating pool got pee in it. I was like, no, your dating pool ain't got pee in it. Your dating pool got Flint, Michigan water in it. And this is what's going on right now, is that there's so many people who are unhappy with the dating scene. Like, can we just get back to regular dates, y'all? Like, we ain't got to go get crab legs on the first date. Can we just go to, like, let's stop looking down on Applebee's, because Applebee's.
Look here, man. I'm all for just go meet me at Starbucks and let's just chop it up.
Let's have a conversation.
First of all, bravo, because I think about the fact that when I first, like, and it wasn't my wife, even before I met my wife, this was true, but like, I remember when I met my wife, I was serious, and I was like, I need to meet her mama. I can't meet her mama on Instagram, and if I can meet her mama on Instagram,
we got a bigger problem.
Where we
got way bigger problem.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. It's like, not only the art of dating, but there's so many things that I feel like I'm becoming that man, like the old man. It's like, get off my lawn now. Because there are certain traditions that should not be thrown out. So
I'm like the great philosopher
talking.
Tevin Campbell said it. Can we talk?
Yes.
For a minute, I want to know your name.
Before he said it.
But I wanted to be more clever.
I want to know your name.
Come and talk to me.
Yeah. Like, just shout out. Do you remember when I'll speak for myself. I remember when my father finally broke down and we got a second phone line in the house, and it was in the basement, and it was like, oh, wait a minute. So I can actually call somebody and talk, and my mama not gonna pick up the phone talking about,
boy,
you forgot to flush the toilet, or pick up these dirty drawers. Ain't nobody got time for this. All these
fast girls you got on the phone.
Right. So which one of your girls you talking to now? I need to call Sister Betty from church. And I'm gonna need you to get off the phone with these fast girls. You ain't going out nowhere anyway. You on punishment. Like,
you on punishment. My mom done outed me on punishment.
I was so grateful I could actually date without being interrupted, because there was phone conversations. There was actual effort put into it. Yes, absolutely. Bring back.
Yep.
Where's real dating?
Used to put on the Wiz mellow moods in the background.
Yes.
And had the slow jams playing so you could lay your game down quite flat.
Even before the Wiz, I guess I started a little bit young because I remember WBLZ. Quiet Storm.
Okay. Well, 103.5. I still remember. So that's my ABB. Like, let's get away from sending penis pics and show me your boobs, and let's just get back to a regular date. Like, can we just get there just one time, just please.
Yeah.
Just do it for your boy.
To add to that, ladies, when are you treating him like a simp, and when is he courting you? And men, when are you tricking, and when are you courting? Because it seems that this generation, the folks out there, don't know the difference between tricking and courting, or simping and courting.
Listen, I'm gonna just go back to what Andre said. If you send the penis pic before the first date, you fall in one of them categories that Paul just gave. You was either simping or tricking, but you doing both of them wrong.
You doing too much. You doing way too much.
The most.
My APB actually adds to his APB. My APB.
We got combinate. We coordinating.
Oh yeah. It's about, I got an APB on grown. What happened to growing up and being grown? It's too many brothers and sisters our age trying to compete with people in their 20s and 30s. It's gone. Your time in the sun has passed. Man. Do not buy them skinny jeans. Do not buy that skirt that 23-year-old woman got on. Don't buy that top. That ain't you, boo.
Just because it fit don't mean it's going to look right.
Bruh, do not, like, what are we doing? I remember when we used to make fun of the OGs when they used to put their little linen short sets on and they little mandals, like, right? But when we got grown, I was like, I can't wait till I get grown, right? My wardrobe has grown with me. I don't dress like I'm 19 years old. I'm not trying to dress like I'm 19 years old. I'm
dressing for my arthritis at this point. Okay? Right. I'm dressing for this joint pain and that stiff back. What's gonna get me
where we going and how long we gonna be there is going to determine what I'm putting on. Like from the shoes all the way up, I'm coordinating based on amount of walking.
Man, look, if I ain't got a place to sit, chances are I'm not coming. I'm not standing up at no concert.
I'm counting the chairs when I walk in.
Yeah, it's a wrap. Like, what happened to getting grown, man?
Yeah.
Like, why are you trying to compete with your kids and your nephews and your nieces?
Make grown folks decisions.
Yes. Like what happened? You can't tell the difference between somebody 22 and somebody 38. I mean, other than looking at them. But they got the same outfit on.
But you kind of just answered it. Part of the problem is you got people that think, man, I look good for 38. You know, I've held up. Here's the thing. Just because you look good for 38 don't mean you need to go back and do things you did at 28 or 18.
Okay. Well, you could do the things you did at 28 or 18. Don't do the things they doing.
Yes.
That's all. Don't do the things they doing. I still got Jordans. I still got Jordans and jerseys. But that's the stuff I was doing at that age. I'm not rocking. You ain't gonna catch me out here dressed like Chris Brown.
Nah. First of all, okay, yeah. Definitely don't do that.
It's too many of us out here competing with young folk. You know what I mean?
What Ali say? If you have the same mindset that you did, if you have the same mindset at 40 that you did at 20, you wasted 20 years.
Yeah.
Grow up.
My niece asked me, she had a friend who was selling tickets to go see Russ at Bridgestone Arena. And my wife started off with, who is that? So I was like, it's the guy who made the Handsomer song. She was like, are we going? No, because we would look like we didn't belong there.
Yes,
like,
you look like somebody's parents.
We would be somebody's parents sitting in there, and they would look at us. I was like, no, I'm not going somewhere to be around a bunch of 13 to 20-year-olds. I don't know, like I barely know the words. We would look out of place. So that's just like them people that y'all talking about who 38 dressing like they 22, thinking they look good for 38. But you still like a 38-year-old dressing like a 22-year-old. That's exactly what the point is.
See, at best, you look like a 36-year-old dressed like a 22-year-old.
bruh, like
I don't even want to bathe like my children do. I don't want to brush my teeth. I don't want to eat like them. I don't want to listen to the. Why do you even want that?
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. So grow up.
Grow up. Adulting still sucks though. Like we're not talking about adulting.
Nah.
Adulting sucks.
No, I'm about to pay some bills as soon as we get out of here. And
man, that sucks.
Man, I miss being 10 sometimes.
So
when it's time to pay some bills.
I just want to watch a WWF cartoon and eat some dig 'em smacks. That's all.
Yeah, where Junkyard Dog at? Come on, Hillbilly Jim. My and this has been a long time coming. Let me just say this, and I mean this. Like, this is episode 4. If there's nothing else you've ever taken me seriously, if you've never believed me about anything, this APB is coming from the heart. I need representation in the rooms of the decision makers at Amazon. There's an Amazon Prime commercial. Amazon Prime Week's coming up next week. And I know that there's nothing I'm going to say that's going to change your mind. Some of y'all already got stuff lined up to be there on Monday because you was mad that they didn't show up this past Monday because they had a holiday off. If whoever greenlit and said it was a go, for this brother to come out here doing these Amazon Prime commercials, I need everybody in that room fired. Y'all didn't have nobody. You talking about reading the room?
Tone deaf.
Mr. Eclectic Soul, read the room. That's your phrase, right?
That is my phrase.
Everybody in that room is illiterate. They can't read.
So for the people who don't know, who was the person that you referring to that's in the commercials though?
Mm-hmm. Talk that talk.
Mm-hmm.
He got a name.
I won't speak it.
No, put an address on that thing.
No,
everywhere.
Brother,
He's selling
I won't do it.
He's selling me insurance. No, bro. Put that.
Nope.
You don't want no cocoa butter?
Nope. See what I'm saying? See what you did? See what you did? You know I can't. See.
I need some cocoa butter though.
No, man. First of all,
I got some cocoa butter in my cart right now.
The Amazon. Let me just say this. And here's the thing. Unfortunately, this is consistent in most of what we see on commercials and TV and any type of media. It's okay to people think it's cool and it's okay to just like ha ha ha. It's funny to like make fun of and poke, but this isn't just a matter of making fun. There is such a thing as buffoonery. Okay. There is such a thing as being a complete and total clown show.
Like
that
Dr.
ain't funny.
What about Dr. Pepper? Little Sweet. Ain't they the same? That's whiteface.
That's a conversation about Prince that I ain't ready to have.
That light skin face, black face, or white face? What face is that?
Like I said, that's a conversation about Prince and I ain't ready to have right now. All I'm saying is Amazon, you better be glad I'm addicted. That's all I'm going to say. Amazon, you better be glad I'm addicted because the way y'all did that, brother, in the Amazon Prime commercial, and I'm not even going to dignify. I ain't going to say no more than that. My APB is not, it ain't even about him. Okay. The man got to get money. My APB out for all the people with some sense who ain't tone deaf that should have been in that room and said, nah, we can't do this.
Wayne Brady would never.
Really?
He wouldn't. I bet Wayne Brady would have been like, I never do. Man, get out of here with this. Come on, bro. Wayne Brady
now we got to hashtag Wayne Brady so he can come at your throat.
He would not. Wayne Brady would not be out there with a Jerry curl wig talking about cocoa butter, bro. Don't do that.
You see what he did there, Andre?
I see what he did.
First he went for Whitlock. Now then he went for Umar over his book. Now he invoking Wayne Brady. Wayne Brady.
No, I gave Wayne Brady pops. You refused to speak the other brother's name. Put his name out there.
Nope.
Address that.
It will not part my
Put a
lips.
stamp on it. You ain't gonna put a stamp on it.
Nope.
But you scared?
Nope.
Put out. You lift all them daggone weights, and you scared of old boy.
This man, listen. This man been on every third commercial.
Yes.
For about 2 weeks, talking about cocoa butter and Amazon Prime. And here's the sad part: the commercial's effective too, because I know what days they are. Mm-hmm. Prime days, 12 and 13. You ain't got to pay for no shipping.
And I know I could get some cocoa butter.
No, it ain't just the cocoa butter. He was like this. That's what it's come to. So, yes, there's an APB out, and I need Amazon. The people in the boardroom
to do better.
I need you to do better, Amazon. All right. It's been a great time discussing all these matters, and we look forward to yet another fun-filled time of topics and things in the news. But until then, we say have a blessed rest of your week. Be safe out there. Don't do nothing crazy. And please feel free to comment, like us, subscribe, agree, disagree. We don't care. We're here for all of it. We just appreciate the fact that you all have taken the time out of your day to listen. And so tell a friend, share, and until next time, be blessed.
Yeah, www.thegraymatterspodcast.com. Check us out there. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Also, let's not forget the young lady, Brittany Griner. Go to www.werbg.org to sign the petition to get that young lady home. But until we meet again next Tuesday, keep searching for the light.
She pled guilty today, y'all.
Yeah, saw that.
Yeah. So, let's, to add to what Andre's saying, let's like you said, speedy recovery. Let's hope they don't, bang her too hard with the sentence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Joe, do your part.
Yeah, do your thing. All right, everybody. Peace out.
Peace out.